Across the country, it's hot.
It's hot out here. It's real hot.
100 million Americans were under excessive heat warnings and advisories.
The United States has recently been facing some problems in its health sector. The worst part is that these problems look like they'll be staying for a while. These problems come in two phases. The first phase is extreme heat, intensified by climate change. As a matter of fact, over 12 people have died in Oregon just this summer as a result of this abnormal heat. And for the second phase, I'll get into it in later part of this video. But before we get into continue, if you're new to the channel, you're welcome. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Also, smash the like button, and let's get back into the video. So in different parts of the United States, extreme heat has been the order of the day. And not just the heat, but the casualties that follow. In parts of Utah, California, Arizona, and Nevada, there have been 90 deaths caused by heat-related illnesses just this month alone. Across the whole United States, about 120,000 heat-related emergency room visits were recorded just last year alone. In just New Mexico, in July last year, about 450 emergency room visits were recorded, and by September, about 900 cases. New Mexico is really feeling this one. In fact, in a recent case in New Mexico, Albuquerque, a 69-year-old man was rushed to the University of New Mexico Hospital after collapsing in his home. By the time he got to the hospital, his body temperature was at a shocking 107.7 degrees. As a last-ditch effort, workers dumped ice directly on the man's body, but it was too late. His blood pressure had already plummeted, and he had suffered a heart attack. Tragically, the man passed away less than 24 hours later, despite the medical team's desperate attempts to save him. From those stats, you see that heat issues have taken over the whole country. According to the President Joe Biden, one weather-related killer in the United States, extreme heat, has taken more lives than hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods combined. But there's a little complication to this issue. Some groups of people are more prone to this disaster than others. The elderly, little children, those with chronic diseases, and financially disadvantaged people. You see, the elderly ones are more prone to heat-related illnesses due to their present weaker physical conditions and decreased ability to regulate body temperature. Children also are at higher risk because their bodies are not yet very good at cooling themselves. The economically disadvantaged individuals who most times lack access to proper air conditioning and live in areas with higher urban heat island effects, putting them in greater danger. Factors like the heat island effect in cities and lack of access to cooling exacerbate the problem. Urban areas can be up to 10 degrees hotter than surrounding rural areas due to the abundance of heat-absorbing surfaces like concrete and asphalt. Many low-income neighborhoods lack sufficient green spaces and tree cover to provide natural cooling, further intensifying the heat. Access to air conditioning is a significant factor, with studies showing that air conditioning can reduce the risk of heat-related mortality by up to 80%. Also, those with serious health conditions like heart disease, diabetes, and respiratory issues are more vulnerable to the effects of extreme heat. But don't get the wrong idea. Even completely healthy people, or people who don't fall in the category listed above, can also be victims of extreme heat. For example, Benji Gregory, a healthy 46-year-old former child actor known for his role in the 1980s sitcom Alf, lost his life due to a suspected heat stroke in Las Vegas, Nevada. Gregory was found deceased in his vehicle. His death and the circumstances that surround it show the dangers of extreme heat, even for seemingly healthy individuals. According to his sister, confirmed that he had died of vehicular heat stroke after falling asleep in his car while trying to deposit some residual checks at a Chase Bank parking lot. It later became revealed that Gregory had been living with bipolar disorder and depression, which may have contributed to his vulnerability to the extreme heat. However, his case serves as a reminder that the risks of heat stroke can affect anyone, regardless of their overall health status. The tragic death of Benji Gregory shows the growing threat of extreme heat in the United States, especially in the southwest regions that are experiencing record-breaking temperatures. Now to the second phase of the heat problem. Due to a few uncontrollable circumstances, the United States sector will find it extremely hard to curb this rising issue. Remember, I said uncontrollable issues. So this is the thing first. Due to climate change, these cases will only get worse. Trust me. And looking at it from this lens, we will see that this is not just a United States issue, but a global one. But that's a story for another day. Secondly, these cases are becoming so rampant that hospitals, emergency rooms, and wards are getting filled up, leaving no space for new victims. According to the search results, heat-related illnesses have put even more pressure on hospitals that are already overcrowded. For instance, one time in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Around 10 patients were to be moved to the emergency department rooms for potential heat exhaustion, but they had to be kept in the waiting room, hooked up to oxygen because some patients were still receiving very important treatment in the emergency room. Dr. Femling, a heat expert who oversees emergency care at the Hospital of the University of New Mexico, said hallways are regularly crowded with patients on beds. But the major reason why the health sector is finding it extremely hard to tackle this issue is how difficult it is to diagnose extreme heat. Some patients come in showing common symptoms like fatigue or headaches, but are actually suffering from extreme heat and potentially die in hours or a few days if not attended to the right way. Interestingly, it's easier to diagnose patients who show mental symptoms like confusion and lack of alertness than those who actually come in with physical symptoms like paleness of skin or even sweat. According to Micah Sternbag, diagnosis of patients with these physical symptoms is exceptionally difficult and complex because when an obvious case is brought in front of them, they will have to look for and treat other underlying conditions. Emergency rooms use a blood analysis device that can quickly measure levels of potassium, carbon dioxide, and glucose. Extreme heat can trigger a disorder called rhabdomyolysis. In this condition, muscle tissue breaks down and muscle fibers spill into the bloodstream. Rhabdomyolysis sometimes leads to kidney malfunction. It is the most unpredictable and the most fatal. Stroke patients with unclear triggers often display symptoms closely associated with heat. One time, a patient from a pueblo arrived at the hospital suffering from a stroke after she was found at home with a 104-degree temperature. Dr. Girotra, a neurologist, while attending to the patient, asked her to lift her arms and legs as he observed her condition. The patient's mother was present, and she tries to calm her daughter down by speaking softly, trying to reach her daughter and provide comfort. The cause of the stroke was unclear, but the medical team considered two possibilities: stress from previously attending a funeral of a loved one, or heat exposure, as the patient's home lacked air conditioning when the paramedics arrived. One thing to be thankful for is how determined the U.S. government and health sector is at tackling this issue. They are doing all they can to ensure that proper treatment is available to anyone that is diagnosed with extreme heat. They have brought up different techniques like putting patients in bags full of ice or cooling the abdomen and quads of the victims, as that is where the blood volume goes through. These methods are truly effective. That's all for today's video. Do you think the U.S. in the next 5 days will overcome this issue? Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget, leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't.